the past 6 months, my practice has blown up, but this pace is killing me. I don't know whether it's really difficult conditioning from my young life or my parents or even AccuSchool, but can someone who feels their personal growth is stunted be ready for what you offer? Short answer, I'll just get this out of the way. Yes, that's why we have a whole personal cultivation section. We're all stunted in different ways. It's relative. Everybody's got something they get stuck on, myself included. That's why I've got a whole personal cultivation track in the program, so you can go through and troubleshoot systematically what's going on. Not just the mindset stuff, but like your own subconscious. There are ways to interface with our own self that once you know this stuff, your whole life changes, and you're never like fixed or done growing, but having these tools to unstick yourself or unstunt yourself, it's become necessary. So kind of the way Doctors Club started officially was I got requests to do some training for the herbs. Like, oh, Jeremy, how are you looking at these herbs? I want to learn this system with like the staged process and stuff. Everything I was doing Modern Vitality basically. And that's like the clinical clarity piece, right? Kind of builds on how to do that, and then some, and then some. But I figured let's add fractal systems in, because once you know how to do herbs this way, you're going to see a whole new way to run your practice, whether brick and mortar, online, hybrid. I mean, there's like once the clinical clarity stuff dials in, all of a sudden you got so many options that they weren't on the table before. So why not? Let's make it comprehensive. Let's teach the business stuff. Well, guess what? I also had to include personal cultivation too, because every time we grow, every time we up level, there's some kind of challenge. It's just the way it works. So if we don't learn the autology, right? Autology, self, auto self, logic, learning, knowledge of, right? Like biology, right? Knowing of life, autology. If we don't develop that skill of understanding ourselves on deep levels, then we will let our subconscious run the show. And what does the subconscious like to do? Status quo, right? The subconscious likes to keep things the same. Don't grow. I don't know what that is, right? The reason why for this, and you need to know this for your patients too, because if you're doing any kind of meaningful work, then they're likely feeling the same thing. There's going to be a transformation that happens, and transformation by definition involves like a new or different state, right? So evolutionarily, we're kind of programmed with this status quo bias, which means that whatever we did yesterday didn't kill us, so it must be good. Let's not deviate from that, which means that our subconscious likes routine. It likes being in a rut, and it doesn't like new shit. Even changes for the better are threatening to that. So your patients will have this too. They want to get better, and the paradox here is the more they feel that you actually legitimately can deliver results, the more their subconscious is going to be like biting its nails and going, are you sure? I don't know. Maybe we should think about it. Maybe tomorrow, maybe a different day, right? All this stuff, procrastination, everything, all the self-sabotage kicks in from there. It's a defense mechanism against change, but even change, positive change, right? So we have the same thing as professionals and as humans, right? Oh, my brick and mortar is really packed, it's blown up, but it's like you're at a new level. Subconscious isn't used to it. So the short answer here is yes, that's what this program is designed for. It's to be comprehensive and to have not just like some lessons which are hard hitting. Also we have like, I just did this update with there's actually like a workbook you can go through that takes you through a process of where you're getting stuck with whatever you're trying to do, why, how to talk to your subconscious, how to figure out all this shit. I mean, it's deep stuff. I would put our personal cultivation trainings on par with any kind of performance psychology coaching. In fact, I think because we combine East and West, we blow any of them out of the water. So anyway, that's all there. It's part of it. But there's also, probably even more importantly, is having a community where the other people in here, like your colleagues, are all going through the same types of growing pains and things like that. So you have people you can reach out to, you can connect with. There's people who understand. There's somebody in this group who is where you are now, they were there a year ago or something like that. And you can connect. You've got, I mean, there's so much power to that, right? So anyway, that's why we have a supportive environment that's got a culture aligned to growth and doing it even though you're a little bit scared, right? And doing these things, because that's how we start to unstunt ourselves, right? So anyway, there's more to this question, but I mean, the short answer is like, yes, absolutely. That's why we do this, what we do. So I feel like I'm starting to realize a lot of my problems have stemmed from lack of awareness on my stunted personal growth, which in the last year I've had to radically deal with this both personally and professionally. Okay, it's good to identify these things, but don't label yourself. Don't get fixated on this stunted thing. Like, sure, there's areas to work on, right? And it's good to see those, but let's kind of focus on the forward movement. I've been working very hard, revamping my business, scaling my offers a bit. Despite a small town with seemingly lower income, it's going pretty good, but I'm just almost burnt out. The past week of learning in the vault has been really awesome for me, so thank you. Things I've realized. I've really struggled in my practice, relocating 5 times, and I've been pregnant or nursing most of my professional life. My husband has been the main benefactor in the family. Anyway, you said something like, I make adult money / I'm an adult. I felt like that mutated me a bit. I'm so ready to leave behind my model of not just making money, but how I see life. Yeah, these things are intertwined. And this is one of the things I found is that my own identity, my own sense of self, my own personal cultivation was going to become a handbrake at some point to any level of growth, right? The weak link in the chain eventually will become us. Again, that's why if you look at clinical clarity, fractal systems, personal cultivation, at any given time, we can kind of put our fingers on our own internal pulse, and one of those is going to be the relatively weakest link, right? So we've got to kind of be able to shore things up and like, yeah, I need to be better with my diagnostics or create a clinical algorithm or whatever it is, right? Tidy that up. And then it's like, oh my goodness, my business model doesn't fit. I need to upgrade my systems for my business so I can actually bring this stuff to life and reach more people and make more money and all this kind of stuff. And then what happens? The personal cultivation piece will need to be addressed because it's like, as soon as you start doing that, it's scary and it's new and the ego starts freaking out, like I already explained. So these things all go hand in hand. And one of the reasons I'm reading out this whole question is because this question here, it covers so many things. This question is actually way bigger than the person asking it maybe even realizes, because there's so much stuff that happens here. My husband has been the main benefactor in the family. That happens, right? Now, here's quick tangent, but here's what can happen, okay? Anybody with an Eastern medicine background is sitting on a fucking pot of gold. I'm going to say it right now. It's not just about the money. It's about the value you deliver and the lives you can change, and the money follows, and the magnitude is huge if you know how to unlock it. Personally, I've been the breadwinner for my family. My son's like 12, right? So as soon as my wife got pregnant, I was like, you're not working, I'll handle it. So for the last like 13 years or so, it's just been my income supporting a family of now 6 people, right? 2 adults, 4 kids. Things aren't cheap, and we've lived in places with extremely high cost of living, very nice places, lots of access to nature. It's a quality of life thing, right? Food, everybody eats really well. I mean, I'll buy a half a cow at a time, whole pig, chickens. I just got like a dozen chickens from my neighbor who's a farmer, and it was kind of cool actually. I got a dozen chickens and I cut them all up at the table, and then now we've got like a bin of wings, a bunch of chicken thighs and all that kind of stuff. Like I do that stuff, I go with really natural food, and I go local as best I can, and it's still, I mean, the cost of living is crazy. Like it's ramping up. I mean, our family is probably like, I don't know, $40K a year in food, groceries, stuff like that, and we cook all our own meals. Like the cost of living is going up, yet leveraging a basic Eastern medicine degree, just a master's, right? I've been able to build something and unlock that, and I'm supporting my whole family. So it's not because I'm a male, right? There's women that have the same degree I have that can unlock it the same way, and they can support a whole family too. And what gets really wild, why I'm getting into this, is because the thing to be aware of, the success problem here, is if there's a relationship where one person's had this, like an Eastern medicine degree, skill set, and of course been, like this person says they've been like lactating and having babies. I know how that goes, right? I know how it goes. It's like just baby, and you look back and you're like, wow, she's been pregnant or breastfeeding for the last like 9 years. So I get it as much as a man can, right? But you go through that whole process, and the underlying arc is like, okay, well the spouse is the breadwinner who makes the money. But now if you're ready to actually take your knowledge base seriously and dive in and really start to unlock it and go big, what can happen is the earnings can come up, and all of a sudden the spouse who has been used to being the provider for however many years, all of a sudden you're earning the same as the spouse, and sometimes more. So what can happen with that is that actually it sounds like a really great thing, but that actually can kind of mess up relationships sometimes if the people aren't communicating about it ahead of time. So one of the things to say is like, I'm just going to put this out there. You do what you want with it, but maybe have that conversation where it's like, are you okay, if my income matches yours? I know you've been taking care of us for so long and it's great, but I really want to like lean into this now and grow business properly without it eating away all my quality of life. I think I can do it. There's some new ways to do things. What if, I'm making the same as you or more? How does that feel? And just feel your spouse out a little bit with that, because you don't want to have a success problem where your business blows up and is doing great, but now your relationship's suffering because somebody who's used to being the provider, you're going past them in terms of income. So you guys got to get on the same page with that and just realize that like it's just a bigger pie. You know, you don't have to compete against each other. So anyway, there's an aside. It's important to talk about these things. So there's that. I'm ready to leave behind my model of not just making money, but how I see life. Yeah, you know, there's always a next level of this stuff, and you've got to let yourself grow into the kind of person who deserves the future you want to have. That was something I had to figure out too, and it wasn't easy to do. In the past 6 months, my practice has blown up. I now know what a full to the brim AccuHerb schedule feels like, which is great, but can't keep up long term. This pace is killing me. I'm curious where to go from here. I don't know whether it's really difficult conditioning from my young life, my parents, AccuSchool. I'm not sure what it takes to demo the program, but I'm very interested in the Twisted Archetypes talk. Okay, yeah, that's part of the program. That's in there for annual members as a deep training. I also am curious if you had any specific guidance for the first thing to do to go from brick and mortar to hybrid. I would really like to invite my patients into a group of some sort so I can stop repeating myself so much, and also they can have more support and learn from one another. Yeah, you're starting to see it, right? You're starting to see the hybrid model. There's a lot of power there. So in terms of the pace, well, I've already talked about the hybrid in other places, but in terms of the pace killing you, the first thing you do is go, okay, what is it about this that is energetically draining me, right? Because it may be, you may be like a real high empath person that doesn't know how to control that. So what often happens is there's the part of your brain that feels empathy is also tied to the part of your brain that feels pain signaling, right? And that's kind of the low-level empath where they can connect really easily, but it hurts when they do it. So if that's the case, you got to kind of be honest with yourself about that, and then you work on that, essentially kind of decoupling those two things. I'm not going to get into all that right now, you know, but if that's just the sheer volume of people, no matter what the interaction is, just your pain centers are going off, that's kind of an issue. But the other one is like, this pace is killing me. Okay, we're going to work on logistics first. Why, right? Is it just there's so many people coming in and now you're like putting needles and taking them out? That's a technical problem that can be solved. If it's having to do with everything else that's not your key activity, which would be the needles, right? Like, oh, you know, I take insurance and now the busier I get, the more bullshit I have to deal with. That's what's killing me, right? Then you need to work on that part of the system. I've talked about insurance a ton. You know, we've got members who are getting out of insurance left and right, and because they're building in fractal systems and doing other things, it's not a problem. You know, they're not out flailing. If the pace has to do with your energy for the day, right? You're working too long of hours, you know, then you got to figure out what's it take behind the scenes. You know, do you need to sleep more? Do you need to have a bigger breakfast? Do you need to decrease an hour each day? Like, do you need to find that kind of thing? Or can you become more efficient? Can you see the same amount of people in less time? Right? One of the big challenges I've been giving out for practitioners is let's get you one less day a week, right? Same number of patients, same amount of income, one less day a week in the office. How could you do that? Start to get creative. If you're screwing around doing moxa on people and cupping them and doing gua sha and all this kind of stuff, it's great. I love it. I've done it too. But if it's the question of you burn out or you keep doing all these adjunctive therapies, right? If you burn out, you can't help anybody. So the adjunctive therapies are a great place to start in terms of going, okay, this is your homework. I've got videos on how to do cupping. You can watch it. You can buy the cups here or Amazon. I don't care, but like it's important, but you do it at home, right? And that's where you kind of start to shift things, right? You give them some more of the responsibility so that you can work a flow that is going to feed you and not drain you, right? There's a lot of stuff like that in terms of technical solutions. But the other question is like, this personal cultivation piece where it's like, oh, my clinic's gotten busy and I don't know, this is burning me out. I can't keep up this pace. Is it really about the pace? That's not an easy question you got to ask yourself. Or is it something else where there's a part of you that's scared of being able to keep up with that kind of pace? There's a part of you that's scared of that level of being a practitioner, right? It's just new and different. It's not even burnout. It's just new. You know, that may be a question too. You got to get your feet under you. You got to develop new systems. Every time you level up, you're going to have a complexity debt you got to figure out, right? So if you have systems that work where you see 5 patients a week and you're like, no problem, and now you're seeing 15 or 20 or 30 or 50 or whatever it is, those systems are going to need to evolve to absorb that extra complexity, right? So that's the whole thing with fractal systems, like going online. We're built for like massive amounts of people. One of our members one month had like 50 something new prospective people come into her group like overnight, and it didn't break her systems at all. I mean, that's the kind of thing. If you had 50 new prospective patients walk into your brick and mortar, you're fucking done. Like that's gonna smash your systems for most anybody. But the way we build it out, especially online, you can absorb all that. It's not a problem, and in fact, they have an even richer experience than if you're trying to one-on-one educate everybody about what you do. So, in terms of the hybrid model, there's a place to start. There's something to think about. There's a lot to this, right? You got to figure out kind of how to build a program, who you're going to build a program for, if you want to specialize it, if you want to make it general. And, we have plenty of things in our program that teach you like hybrid offers, how to frame this stuff, how to talk about it, how to price it out, and all that. Everything's in the program in terms of that, because it's a big step. But I would say the kind of the deeper thing is like, just, check in and be like, oh, am I just scared of growing, whatever that looks like? Am I rejecting this new reality because it makes me feel like a different person, right? It's like, yeah, you are. If your identity is used to being pregnant all the time and breastfeeding and being like a full-time mom, which I get, and now it's like, oh, I'm like, this is like a viable business. I'm actually getting busy. And there's going to be a shift with that, and moving 5 times. I started practice in 2009 and I did 1 open practice and 1, 2, 3, 4 cross-country moves in that time. It's not really great for business, when you're building a brick and mortar. But that said, because I did Fractal Systems underneath, with Modern Vitality running, having an online program, I was totally location independent. So the last time I did move across the country, I didn't even start a clinic up. I just had that going. So there's a lot of power to that stuff because life's uncertain. Sometimes you do have to take a bit of time off or relocate or whatever, and that can wreck a brick and mortar. They're fragile that way. They're geographically fragile, but the online stuff's not. It's incredibly robust. All right, hope that helps. Get to work.